All right, so today we're diving deep into a story that I think you're really going to find fascinating. It's about a guy named Ye Jiani. He's a Chinese immigrant who basically built this whole business empire spanning like multiple continents. And we're pulling this all from this really interesting Chinese news article about him. I mean, talk about ambition, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, cultural exchange too. His story is a great example of that, like this fascinating blend of global ambition,
Hmm.
but also this deep-rooted connection to where he came from.
Exactly. So picture this. It's the year 2000, right? And this young guy, Ye Jiani, he decides to leave his hometown, Qingyuan, China. And he's not leaving with a lot, by the way. But there's this one line in the article that really stuck with me, where it talks about him carrying this like immense weight of family expectations on his shoulders. I don't know about you, but that really struck a chord with me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially back then, like leaving home with all those hopes and dreams riding on you. It hit different back then. Think about it. Phone calls were a luxury. Letters took weeks to arrive. So every time you did get to connect with family back home, it was like this huge wave of expectation and longing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it really makes you think about that whole image of a young immigrant starting fresh in a new country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just about like hitting reset. It's about proving something, and not just to themselves, but to everyone back home who's counting on them. It's a lot of pressure.
It is. And, we can't forget about his hometown either. Kinkian actually has this long history of immigration. It's like woven into the fabric of their culture, this whole idea of venturing out, seeking opportunities, and ultimately bringing that success back home. So he's not just carrying the weight of his own dreams. He's carrying the legacy of his community too.
Wow, I actually hadn't thought about that. So he arrives in Italy, and like a lot of immigrants, he's got to start somewhere, right? So he takes a job washing dishes.
It's almost a classic story, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, we've all been there.
Right. Elbow deep in suds. But you know what I think is interesting is that these early experiences, they often shape entrepreneurial journeys in ways we don't always realize. Like, think about it. Restaurants, they're like crash courses in understanding a whole new market. You're immersed in the culture, the language, the rhythm of daily life. And for someone like Ye, I'm betting he was paying attention to every little detail.
Oh, I bet he was too. And he must have been a fast learner because get this, by 2006, he opens his first department store in Italy. I mean, that's a pretty big jump from washing dishes, don't you think?
That's putting it mildly. I mean, it just goes to show you how sharp his business sense was. You see, instead of just seeing it as a job, he saw it as a learning opportunity, a chance to really understand what the Italian consumer wanted. And this is where things get really interesting. The article mentions that he actually found success by focusing on Italian leather goods, handbags specifically.
Oh, interesting. So he was tapping into that desire for high quality, maybe even locally made products?
Exactly. He recognized this niche market, this demand for authentic Italian craftsmanship,
Yeah,
and he went for it.
smart.
It was. And that move, that right there tells you he had a deep understanding of the market and a real knack for spotting what people wanted. He saw those needs that nobody else was meeting.
So he's killing it in the Italian leather goods market, right? You'd think
Yeah.
he'd be pretty happy with that, right?
Right. But that's not how Yi rolls. This is where we really see his global vision come to life. At this point, he's leading this group, the Italy Nihao group. And according to the article, they have over 30 department stores
Wow, 30.
across Europe.
That's wild. But it gets even more interesting. Because in 2010, he makes this move, right? He goes back to China, sets up shop in Zhejiang. And now for those who don't know, Zhejiang is like a massive hub for e-commerce. It's like he's coming full circle in a way, bringing his success back to his roots.
It really is. And honestly, that move was brilliant on so many levels. I mean, think about it. He recognized this huge shift happening in the global market, the rise of Chinese e-commerce. And he was in the perfect position to connect the dots, to bring these luxury European goods to all these eager shoppers in China.
Totally. Like he took that whole Italian shopping experience, the
Right.
quality, the
Right.
craftsmanship,
Yeah.
and he bottled it up
Yeah,
and shipped it straight to China.
exactly. But he didn't stop there. The article mentions that he was also supplying these big e-commerce platforms
Wow.
like Tmall and VIP.com.
Wow. So he was thinking big picture, multi-platform distribution, not just selling stuff, but building this whole network.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that shows a really deep understanding of how retail was changing. He wasn't just adapting. He was ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And that's what separates the good from the great entrepreneurs.
We've talked about his ambition, his business smarts. But this next part of Yez's story, this is what really got me. It goes way beyond just like profits and products.
It does. The article really highlights how he becomes this champion for his hometown. Like he sets up this whole scholarship fund for students in Kinchin who need it. And he's pouring money into local infrastructure projects, too.
So it's not just about bringing those Italian leather goods back home. It's about bringing opportunities back, investing in the future of the place where he came from.
Absolutely. And I think that really gets to the core of his story, right? Remember those heavy expectations we were talking about earlier? The ones he carried with him when he left? This feels like his way of not just meeting them, but like smashing them out of the park.
Totally. He's like redefining what success even means. It's not just about personal gain. It's about lifting up your community,
Yeah.
creating opportunities for everyone.
Right. There's this quote in the article from a local in Kinchin. They said, Ye Jiani is a role model for us all. He shows us that anything is possible with hard work and determination.
Wow. Talk about coming full circle. He leaves carrying the weight of his family's dreams. And he comes back as this huge inspiration for a whole new generation.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And, his story makes you think about some bigger questions too, right? Like, how do these individual journeys reflect the changes happening in the world? Yi's path, it shows how everything's connected. The cultural exchange, the economic opportunities, that pull of home, it's all intertwined.
It really is.
So we'll leave you with this thought. How does Yajani's story change your perspective? How do you see the world a little differently after hearing about his journey?
That's something to think about. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.